Hello. So I just want to share this. So if you're interested in hearing the voice of God, according to Western tradition or the Abrahamic traditions, they suggest reading the Bible or the Quran, practicing stillness and praying, worshiping, aka going to church or temple or shul, listening and obeying the soft voice inside, and acknowledging synchronicities that happen in your life that might open doors. But what do other religious traditions have to say about hearing the voice of God in your own life? And we will discover this tonight on Thursday Night Live. Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. So I would say last week, but we had that little technical glitch that occurred. So 2 weeks ago, I was discussing the three Abrahamic traditions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And again, repeating what I just said, they suggest that if you want to hear the voice of God, that you read the Bible or the Quran, that you practice stillness and pray, that you worship or go to church or something like that, that you listen and obey to the soft voices inside. And that is how God communicates to you, through opening doors or creating opportunities for you to follow. And so, but where this whole two-part segment came from is, and please no mean cards or letters with me saying this, but this is my reality, that if you are Christian and you hear the voice of God and you pay attention to the little whispers inside and you feel inspired to do something, you're good and you go to heaven. But if you say that you're psychic and you listen to the soft whispers inside and you pay attention to synchronicities and you do things like meditate or something like that, you're doing freaking devil work. And I don't really understand how they can make that equation. And so we are going to explore more Eastern traditions, primarily what comes out of India, Hinduism, and then the basis of Chinese medicine, which is the meridian system. Because Taoism, or following the Tao, isn't a religion, it's a philosophical practice, but not a belief system. And so, but let's start here. So when you think about God in Western traditions, God is often depicted as this guy out there, this guy sitting in a chair, waving his hand and having things magically happen here on earth, that there is somebody in charge that made the earth and made humanity in 7 days. But then you get the question, so if that guy is there, then who made that guy? Which you can't answer because it's an unanswerable question. But when you look at how that concept is understood in Eastern traditions, they don't suggest that there is a person or male or female who's sitting there running the show. Like, there's no CEO of existence hanging out. They tend to suggest that we are part of God, that we are integral to, like us, a rock, a tree, other people, other planets, life on other planets, that we are all manifestations of God. And we are in this dynamic within it. And so there is no guy in a chair, because we are part of the manifestation. And so that really, one, throws a different light on things. But when you're talking about, the whole psychic thing, I'm just going to say the whole psychic thing, where we have gleaned our most of our information regarding Eastern spirituality has really come from the New Age movement, and if you're a New Ager, you're already like an evil devil worship, gonna burn in hell kind of person anyway. But that whole idea sheds light on how we hear the voice of God. And in those systems, they describe a very, I'm going to say, the mechanism that occurs between us and the divine. And so they have, and we're going to talk about the diagrams and talk about the systems, so they have dug deep and come up with a contextual reality of how things invisible to us and that communication with God occur. And so in that system, and through New Age ideas, there are concepts like orange chakras, which, excuse me for saying this, but if you're a hardcore Christian, you don't have. You can't meditate, but you can practice stillness. You can't repeat mantras, because mantras are evil, but you can say a rosary, which is basically repeating the same prayer over and over and over, which is kind of like a mantra, and part of that whole concept, Eastern concept, is looking for those synchronicities and having gratitude for finding them. Now, one comment that I want to make, and this is a me comment, is so I was brought up Catholic. I went to Catholic school, and I have to tell you, I never, ever, ever heard of anyone saying, well, you should go meditate. Well, you should find silence, or practice stillness. Those words were never used. It was go to church. Go to church, maybe read the Bible, in some religious organizations, reading the Bible is definitely a part of it, but there's never this concept of listening to that voice inside and paying attention to and living your life based on that inner voice, that soft voice inside that is leading you forward. And so we get, to me, all of that information from Eastern traditions, even though they kind of negate it. Sorry, I'm a little cranky on this whole thing. But let's talk about what we find in Eastern traditions, because I have like a very interesting little thing to add to it. I have a million slides, and hopefully they are going to cooperate with me today. So when we're talking about Hinduism, nope, that is the one I want, but why is it not the right picture? There we go. So in Hinduism, they talk about the chakra system, and there are 7 chakras that run up and down the spine, and they connect to different areas in our body and affect us in different ways. And so the first chakra, the one at the base of the spine, has to do with our connection to the earth. It has to do with our physical body. The second chakra has to do with our ability to feel energy. The third chakra has to do with will and our willpower and how we interact with people and situations around us. The fourth chakra has to do with love and affinity and our care for ourselves. The fifth chakra has to do with communication, not just our inner voice, but also our ability to hear spirit. The sixth chakra is our third eye, our ability to see information on like in our imagination, on non-visual, meaning eye channels. And then the seventh chakra connects us to the divine. And so the way that the process works is energy comes in through the seventh chakra, down through the body, all the way down to the earth, and then comes back up through those chakras. And when we're in health, those chakras are open and spinning. And when we are in ill health, there is some kind of impact on those chakras that is causing our body to manifest disease. So we find a very similar system. Boy, if I could just like see these pictures, they are so small. Okay, we find a similar but different system coming out of China. And there, why is it doing that? That is not what I'm touching. Okay, let's do that. Okay, and so there we find the acupuncture system. And what the acupuncture system suggests is that there are energy channels that run through the body. So all of those little lines are actually meridians. And we talked about the meridians on one show that run through the body. But as you can see, there is a main line that comes down the center of the body. And so imagine, so actually I have a different picture. This would be better. No, go back. There we go. And so this is the meridians as well as the acupuncture points on the head and the upper torso. And so where the chakras are 7 individual points up and down the spine, and they identify that there are chakras in your hand, or a chakra in each hand and a chakra in each foot. In the Chinese system, they take those 7 and break it down into a massive number of individual points that run through the body. And again, if you have an obstruction in one of these acupuncture points, it can manifest as physical disease, which is why people go and get acupuncture. And in acupuncture, they take a very fine needle and they insert it in those points, depending on what your symptoms are. So let's say you are having gallbladder issues and it was manifesting as, let's say, headaches. Okay. And so if you look on that picture, right above the eye, there is that green line that's coming to a point, kind of a little triangle. And that's actually a piece of the gallbladder meridian. And so if it's determined that your gallbladder meridian or your gallbladder is having issues and it was manifesting in headaches, it might be that they are going to stick needles into some of those points based on the belief that there is stagnant energy, that there is energetic obstruction in those points, and that obstruction is causing you to be ill, to be sick. And so, but it gets interesting because all right, I'm going to go with this picture. What do I have? 2 of the same. Okay, I have 2 of the same. Okay, but in addition to the physical body, and this comes more out of Hinduism and the chakra system, they also talk about the bodies that surround us, namely the etheric body, the emotional body, the material body, and the causal body. And energy from the world around us has to go through each of these bodies before it impacts us. And so when someone gets sick and they're working with me and I'm poking around on their gallbladder and I am able to identify, what thoughts and emotions are impacting their health, because, and I'm just going to come back to this. So I wish I had like a little pointer that I could point on here other than my screen, so going back to that green line that's on the head. So maybe the point on the green line that is by their ear maybe I am detecting that that spot is obstructed, which has an emotion tied to it, and that's what needs to be cleared. I hope this is making sense. I might feel like I'm kind of rambling, but it is not that the thought and emotion is sitting inside the physical body. It's because that thought or emotion is sitting either in the mental body or the emotional body and is interfering with the flow of energy through the subtle channels that make up our body. And so you might go, okay, well, that's Eastern stuff. What does that have to do with anything or religion? And so I'm going to throw this into the mix because this is, I find fascinating. I don't find fascinating, but I think you might find it fascinating. Okay, so enter Jewish mysticism. So we talked about the Abrahamic traditions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. But the mystical side of Judaism, and there is a very mystical side to Judaism, bases a lot of their belief and their study on the Kabbalah. And so if you are talking to someone who studies Kabbalah, their view of who we are and our relationship to God is very different. And so the way that it was explained to me, and I love this example. So imagine that I'm going to make myself big here for a second. So imagine that there's a star. And, so here's the star. But coming off of the star are all of these rays. And when you get to the end of the ray, so this is our ray. So this is our causal body. This is our mental body. This is our emotional body. This is our etheric body. And on the very tip of that is us. And our consciousness, according to both Eastern texts and Kabbalistic texts, starts when we pass the line from being part of the star into the causal body, which separates us and individuates us from God. That's God. That's us. That's me. That's you. That's your brother. That's Raylan. So we're all connected to source, but because we are on the end of these points, we can't recognize that we're all connected. Very different viewpoint, very different underlying belief as to what's going on. But going back to this tree of life, so I very briefly talked on the chakras. Okay, go back. There we go. And so in the tree of life, it's very interesting. If you count, there are actually 7 layers. So starting at the bottom, at number 10, there's Malkut. And then going up, number 9 would be like the second chakra. Number 8 and 7 match up with the third chakra. Number 6 matches up with the fourth chakra. And you notice how everything goes into that location, that seraph, which is where we process what's going on with me. The next layer up, number 5 and 4, is how we communicate. Number 3 and 2 has to do with our ability to commune with higher sources. And then again, number 1, how we connect to source. And when you assess what these individual points mean, so in all right, that was not what I meant to do. There we go. That is not, this thing is so retarded sometimes. Okay, so, so in Hinduism, when you talk about the chakra, they talk about the yin and the yang. The good and the bad, the happy and the sad, and they are integrating into this one whole. And sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less. But in this system, there is where we are whole and where we are undivided. And that is that middle pillar. And then there are the ones that are split. And if we So I'm going to use Hod and Netches, and I have no phonics skills, so if I'm not saying it right, sorry. And so this has to do with our third chakra, our ability to use our power and our energy for ourselves or in relationship to other people. And so 7 is our unfettered energy. We sit down with a good book. We start playing a video game. We go out for a walk in nature. We're sitting with a good friend and we're talking. And the next thing we know, time has gone by and we've had just a really good time. And that is the power of us using our energy in an abandoned state, where it is not fettered or held in consequence. But on the other side, on number 8, is the power of will. And so that's the energy that we use to pay our bills and clean the bathtub and mow the lawn. And so the belief is that you can be drifted off way into 7 and never get anything done, or you could be way off on the other side and really not have any fun in your life, with the goal of having those two sides meet in the middle to be one and be whole. So when speaking about communing with God, based on this system, and I have another image, but I was already kind of getting overloaded with pictures, is that energy from God comes in to number 1, and then it goes down to number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and then down and out through number 10. And that is called the lightning path. And it is through having the energy be able to flow through the tree of life unfettered. Okay, if your 7 and 8 are whole and combined, they're going to sit on the middle pillar. If 4 and 5 are whole, they're going to sit on the middle pillar. If 2 and 3 are whole, it's going to sit on the middle pillar, and energy will flow freely through you. And so I think it's interesting because, on the surface with Judaism, it's, go to shul, honor the Sabbath, do the 10 commandments, do mitzvahs, do these things. But no one really talks about, again, how to commune with God, even though when you get into their metaphysical or their spiritual part, it's very much a conversation of how you commune with God. And so, and see, finally, we're getting back to this picture. And so imagine where there's the little, okay, so there are the bodies, and then there are the little wavy lines in between. So imagine if between one body, so between the causal body at the 6th chakra and the mental body, where there's kind of that sine wave, that in between are all of the chakras, or lined up, or a tree of life lined up. And then between the next 2 bodies, another set of chakras or another tree of life lined up. And so energy has to travel through all of that and make it so that we can hear the voice of God. And so I don't know, okay, I'm really not talking about the voice of God. I'm really talking about these systems, but I don't understand how, in talking about these systems and in talking about how energy travels through us and how our subtle energy or our subtle body is made up, how that is so evil and how that is so demonic and how that is so awful. I mean, it is just sitting there and telling you how you need to fix the car or telling you how the car works. And I don't understand why that people have such a hard time with it. So, it just seems like Western traditions aren't really interested in figuring out and learning how really to commune with God, or or to understand the deeper workings of who we are. So as I said before, there's more than one road to God. So let me get big again. As I said before, there's more than one road to God that can, and more than one way to help you get there. And so, perhaps instead of bashing and belittling anything that stands outside the book, that maybe they should look into these mysteries of what's going on and take it as a roadmap as to how to make that connection. Because regardless of the path you choose, it's my hope that you decide to connect with God and be open to hearing his voice. So let me know what you think. So if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, let me know what you think in the comments below, and while you're there, whether you're on BitChute or Rumble, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments. And while you're there, please like and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, star me, follow me, whatever it is on that platform, so that you can keep informed of shows that are coming up, because I would love for you to continue getting this kind of education from me. And I would love to hear from you. I would honestly love to hear from you. Okay, so let's kind of change gears. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat room. And so before I do, here are the rules of engagement. So if you would like to get a reading from me, just say in the comments, hey, Dr. Rita, your hair looks really great, which actually it does look pretty good today. I'd like to get a reading, and then provide me with a number between 1 and 3. And that's how many times I will shuffle the cards on your behalf and give you a reading. If you have a specific question that you would like to ask, what is with this thing? I keep pushing the button. I'm not pushing that other picture button, and it just won't go away. If you would like to ask a specific question, then go to soulhealer.com/live, soulhealer.com/live, and go to the Ask Dr. Louise tab, or button, and you can go there and ask me a specific question. There might be something going on with work. There might be a relationship issue that you would like some more insight. And that would be the venue for asking me something specific versus just getting a general reading. If the show's going on and it looks like, wow, she's not going to get to me today, and you would like to jump the line, click the jump the line link, and I will go and, check my email, and you will be the next person in line to get a reading today. So with that said, let's go ahead. Oh, let me get me back. Okay. With that said, let me give my cards a quick shuffle here, and we will get started.